Well, hello, and welcome again to New Hope's Women's Ministry for Lauderdale in Search of, where we search for the intriguing, the informational, and the controversial from a spirit-filled perspective. My name is Marie Brathwaite, and we're going to go in search of today the reality of love. Love, it is both a noun, I'm in love with him, and a verb, I love him. We are using the book, The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, as our base. He identifies 5 love languages that are basic to marriage, and according to the book, if you can find your partner's love language, you have the groundwork for a successful marriage. He also recognizes that there is a primary love language, but you can also be bilingual and multilingual. These 5 love languages are words of affirmation, verbal compliments, words of appreciation and encouragement, quality time, togetherness, focused, undivided attention, receiving gifts, something you could hold in your hand, or a gift of self, or the gift of presence with a C. Acts of service, doing things you know your spouse would like you to do. And last but not least, physical touch, holding hands, kissing, embracing, and sexual intercourse. The 5 Love Languages is a very good book to read, and it helps you to find what is your primary love language, how you give and receive love. It's also very helpful if your spouse reads it, so that the journey of finding your love language is done together. Our youth in AYS did a wonderful program on the same topic and went into detail, tying the 5 love languages to everyday friendships and a relationship with God. I urge you all to go on YouTube and look for that program. They did an excellent job. In saying that, what is the reality of love? My guests tonight are all young married women whose homework was to complete the book prior to this program, which they all did. They have been married anywhere from 5 to 20 years. So we're going to have a frank talk, not about the book in and of itself, but about the reality of love, of the love they're living. This is their reality. Their reality. Okay, so let me introduce you to my ladies who were gracious enough to be a part of this program. We have Tasha, we have Kina, Wave, we have Cindy, and last but not least, we have Tess. So we're going to dive into this program right now, and we're going to start off with the question, do you think the love language is learned, or is it an innate behavior?
I think when we're born, our love language is all universal. We need touch. We need hugs as children. We need that interaction. But I think when it pertains to a married relationship, it is learned.
Oh, you think it's learned, the love behavior?
Well, I think it's both. I think it's both. I think when you are born, you need, it's innate to be touched, to be hugged, to be loved by parents. We need that to grow. We need that to thrive. I think when it pertains to marriage now, I think it is learned. I think the different ones, as you know, the 5 love languages, I think those things are learned because you have to adapt to your partner. So I think we learn those things. I think, you know, as you grow, you have different needs. And then I think, you know, when you get to the stage of being married, I think that's when, you know, it's a little bit learned.
If I could jump in and add to what Tosh said. So I've done a lot of introspection since reading this book. And I also have concluded that it's learned, but from a different perspective. I was thinking about the things that make me feel secure and loved. And I think back to those are the things my father did. So those are the things that I think, men do when they are in that role of caring for somebody. So from that vantage point, I'm thinking, well, I guess I learned to equate this type of thing with love. That's my comfort zone, I think, because I learned it from my parents' house.
So that background of your parents, I guess that's why they say girls, who've had the love of a father, look for that kind of love in the man they marry. Because I know for me, I was my father's eyeball. So when I got married, I expected just to continue to be the queen. It didn't always work out, but yeah.
I think that our love language is also more or so learned behavior because of what we see and what have been going on around us for a while in our homes. So we're raised. If you're in a home and you're raised and you're seeing all of these attributes between your mom and a father, or even if you have come from a single parent home, that's something that you're learning and that you're going to take into your marriage or whatnot, because of those things that you've adapted as a young child. And then you start implementing them in your marriage, really not understanding if it's a right or wrong. I'm not even sure if there's a right or wrong way to understand a love language, to be honest. I mean, is that even possible to say our love languages are wrong or right? Is there a more right love language than another? I don't know, because it's kind of a catch-22. I really don't know.
Okay. You were all raised Christians. What was your initial thought of what marriage would be? Growing up in the church, what did you think marriage was going to be?
Well, like I just said, it goes back to this. My princess fairy tale thought was you're going to marry your, knight in shining armor. You're going to have the 2.5 or the 2 kids and then a dog. And then you're going to just be happy all the time and be blissful. However, realistically, what you've seen in your home is what you usually emulate. And even as a Christian growing up, I saw so many things, and I realized that, this is what marriage is about. There are some things that I saw that I said, I want to change that when I get married, because of what the media said that marriage would be, or what you saw other couples interacting into their marriage. So it's like you go into it just thinking that, this is how marriage is going to be. Now realizing that it's so much more than what you see. I really want to say that it's experimental, to be honest. I mean, we're learning as we go.
And do you think that because you were raised with such a Christian background, did it make a difference?
Yes, I will say it does make a difference. I will definitely say that coming from a Christian home, it does make a difference into a marriage. However, it doesn't make it a perfect home.
Mm-hmm.
I think it makes us a little conservative.
Yes.
To be honest. I think, like, now I say I have conversation with my children, and I make it more realistic, because there was a lot of missing pieces to my puzzle. And when I got into, honestly speaking, within the first couple months, I must have thrown my ring so many times in my marriage and saying, listen, I'm out. This is not what I signed up for. I got to go.
Right.
We just because of the unexpected happened so quick. I mean, you're taking 2 different people and trying to become one. That is not easy. That is not easy, especially with 2 personalities that are adamant. So I think we had a conservative approach to what we were told, especially when it comes to sexual intercourse. Let's just be real. Very conservative approach. I mean, you know, you get in there and you're just like, I didn't have any guidelines, you know, I didn't just like, and then to throw kids into that mix as well, it's a lot. It's a lot. And there was a lot that I learned just by jumping head first, to be honest.
Well, kudos to you if you even had that conversation, you know, or with your parents about the sexual things, because as Christians, as Christians, or I will say as our church, you go to church with the understanding that you leave all you put on this mask. Everything is okay.
Yep.
We are fine. There, you know, mom and dad may not have spoken or whatever, but we get in that car, get ready to go to church.
Yes, it's happy Sabbath.
Right. It's the best family there is. Not realizing that as soon as church is over, everyone is going into their separate rooms, you know, and going back to whatever it is it was before. And so we're not talking about it because we should realize that you go to church for that reason, to say, we need help. We're not perfect.
Right.
We need someone to pray for. We all probably need to be at the altar, but we're not going to the
altar. Right. So you all had a little experience because my father was not Adventist or any Christian. Of course, he believes in God. You know, he's Jamaican. He knows the Bible as well as but he was not a church-going man. So I kind of fantasized about what it would be like to be in a Christian marriage. So the awakening for me is people are Christians, but they're also human. They're people. They make mistakes. They have shortcomings. You know, they have idiosyncrasies. And so that was eye-opening for me. I was like, I figured you were a Christian and I'm Christian. Everything would be bunnies and rose-colored glasses. And so, you know, that is the reality of love, is the human dynamic. And, you know, we're all striving to be better people, to be better Christians. And so we all need to be at the altar, right? So that was eye-opening for me, that within a Christian marriage, you still have life that you're dealing with.
And did you think, you know, I know some of us might have a more solid foundation in the Bible, or you know, I'm not sure how that will work for each of you, but you know, they always point you to the Bible, which is the book with which we streamline our lives. Yes, but did the Bible in and of itself help you to face reality?
Well,
in marriage?
In marriage? Yeah. In this story, I don't even know, because I think I have probably the least Christian background because I'm the rebel of the group. My favorite story from the Bible, as far as a woman went, was, I think her name was Gomer. I think I've tried to tell my mom this one time. Gomer, in the story, where the man had to go out and bid for his wife. Even though she was, I guess, was considered at the time a whore, a worldly woman. And the Lord told him that she had to go out and bid for his wife and get his wife back. And child after child, she continued to have, and he wanted out the marriage. And the Lord said he had to stay. My picture of marriage was kind of like her. I thought growing up that you had to be this perfect little girl. And when I realized that I wasn't perfect, then I was like, well, whoever decided to love me was just going to love all of me and just be okay with whatever it is that I put up with, because once we was married, and that's it. And no matter what I did, he's supposed to go out and bid for me. And, you know, my happy ending, because all princesses get their knight shining armor at the end of the day. And that's what I thought. And the story tells that, but it didn't go into like what he really went through emotionally. I think it talked about some of his kids' names and what they meant, but I always gravitated to the stories where I heard a struggle, but no one ever talked about those things. They were just like put aside, like it's a woman's problem, and you know, Eve is broken. Every woman in the Bible was broken, and so I really thought that women were broken, and as little girls were like groomed to have to please these men somehow. And you realize that at the end of the day, you might not even like them when you bring them home. Because it was all, the whole dating period was all a charade. You sit there, you go order dinner, you don't want to order too much, and you got to put your mask on, and you got to pretend the entire time, and you got to fake in front of your family, fake in front of your friends. And I just think it was, no one ever had honest conversation from a Christian standpoint about, you know, what it takes to be a real woman, what it takes to, you know, make someone actually happy. Because I think guys get a different view of how it, you know, is to be in a marriage. I really do. Like, they have bachelor parties, some of them, you know, where it's like, you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to settle down? And we're preparing ourselves all this time, waiting for a ring, waiting to be chosen. We have sweet 16s, you know, announcing to the world. And at the end of the day, it's like, okay, now what?
And that's exactly it. Yes.
So important, because it should be really in the church where you're prepared for life. And even the Bible says, you know, that the older women should teach the younger women. So there should be no need for really people to have these aha surprises in these marital relationships if we were really passing the baton and teaching and grooming realistically. Right? It's good to teach the standard. This is what you want to look for. This is what you want to strive for. Here's some of the realities, right? And how do you persevere through any challenges you may have until you reach your perfection in your marriage, whatever that looks like.
Well, unfortunately, that was not, it was not the case. Not saying that we can't pass the torch and do it for the upcoming generation as older women. It was more so how we look versus how we're feeling or what is actually going on. That mask, again, as long as you look this part, and I think that's what it was so much about, looking a certain way, being this virtuous. And I've always had an issue of what virtuosity meant because of certain things. Like, if you're looking this way, you're not a virtuous girl, or you have to be this type of way and dress this type of way. And if so, you're never going to have a husband. If so, you're going to get a different type of husband, which that has nothing to do with anything. It was more so, I understood it to be that, oh, I have to have a stigma to be a wife and to get a husband versus who I really am. Do I accept who I am? And, that opens up another Pandora's box of who we are and self-image and self-love and a lot of things like that. So it's just like, we're just fitting the mold of what they're telling us to do. And then we find out all these different things when we get married.
I was raised in a generation before you, and my generation, nothing
Nothing
was discussed, and it was just this idea that in order to have a perfect marriage, you had to be that perfect daughter that did nothing wrong. You dutifully went with your family to church. You stayed home until you got married, and you were a virgin when you got married. And if you didn't maintain this standard, you'd never get a good husband, let alone a husband in the church. You know, and you had to toe the line a specific way. For me, back then, like I said, sex was never discussed. So you went into marriage not knowing. And so the reality of love for me was going from a safe environment to this environment which was literally with a stranger, and the expectation was that you made it work, no matter what you have to do. In this day and age, I know I have 3 daughters, and I've raised my daughters to be very strong and to know what they want and to fight for what they want, as opposed to how I was raised, where my father was definitely the head of the household. If we were to get a whippings, it was wait till your daddy came home, and when he sat down, my mother served him first, and you were expected to, now mind you, love my father till the end of the earth, okay? Because I was his princess, and So my father treated me the way he knew to treat a girl child, which was very protective. Jamaican, very strict, and there were just certain things you did not do as a girl child in this home. And I was raised with three brothers. So it was like one standard for me and one standard for my brothers. And um and so I'm sorry, our pastor just asked if the husband is not supposed to be served first. Yeah. He made me lose my train of thought. But yes. It was you were raised by this strict this is the way a young lady is supposed to be, and it had nothing to do with reality. And even in the Bible, you saw the same thing where the man had the power. The man, if the wife was mentioned, it was in conjunction with the man. She was old and she couldn't have a child, and her husband. I can't even think of the rest of them now, but I think you understand where I'm going with this. Even in the Bible, it was so patriarchal that when you got into it, it was like, okay, where do I come in this equation? Because with my spoiled self, and being raised with three brothers, my father made sure they didn't run herd over me. So I wasn't used to having a man per se dominate me if he wasn't my father. So getting into a marriage where I was expected to play the good, dutiful, quiet wife that you hear, you sometimes hear in the Bible, it didn't resonate with me. And I had a lot of problems trying to get reality with what should be.
I had that problem too.
Mhm.
I was raised by a very strong mother, and if some of you don't know, we come from the same family. And I see my cousin shaking her head, and my aunt knows we come from some strong women. And there is, if you looking for a yes man in our family, yeah, no.
Right.
Not the women.
I had a problem with that. And that it took me a little adjusting to kind of pull back some and choose my battles, because I fought every one. In the beginning, I fought every one. I'm gonna be honest, I fought every one. Now I have learned, progressing through marriage, that you have to choose some, and some things are better left unsaid.
Mhm.
But nobody told me that in the beginning. I had to go through a whole lot of unnecessary foolishness to come to that realization. So I think we need to change the narrative in the church. We need to educate young people that it's not about the dress, and it's not about the wedding party. It's not about the reception. It's not about that. Because in the beginning, that's what I thought it was about. Oh, great. I get to put on this dress. I get to party. And then when I leave, the wedding's still a party. No. So I think we need to change that narrative. We need to educate these young ladies. And I mean, I've had friends marry after me, and I was very honest. I said, listen, the biggest thing you need counsel on is conflict resolution. Find out how they deal with conflict, big one, because that can make or break your first couple of years in marriage. Conflict resolution. How do they stop talking when you want to still talk about something? Is it always anger when you bring something up? So I think we need to change the narrative. We need to educate women, and not just when they're about to get married, but we need to have conversation with young people before dating, before courting. Let's talk about marriage. Let's talk about what your view is on marriage. What do you think a good marriage consists of? We need to open up these conversations and have conversation.
So Tash, let me ask you this. Ask all of you, in fact. Do you believe that counseling before marriage is a good thing? And if you had counseling, did you think it helped?
Did not have counseling. But I do, but I don't think it should be counseling just when you are about to get married. I think we need to have courtship counseling. We need to have young people counseling. You know, we need to understand who we are before we even get into a relationship. So by the time that you do get married, it's not counseling, it's just closing everything up. You're about to go into this. You already know what to expect. You know, don't wait till the last minute. That's like studying for a final exam 2 minutes before the exam. No, we need to have these conversations with young people, developing young men. What to, you know, what are your roles as a husband? What do you think of marriages? Because everybody's perception of marriage is different, you know? So we need to have conversations. Me and Contessa talk about this all the time. We need to educate young people. We need to be open about conversation. It's okay. All these things are human. Why can't we talk about it? Why not?
I believe counseling should continue to go. I think counseling, it's, you know, keep going and going. I think you're just saying premarital counseling, like Tasha just said, prior to, but in order to make something, if you want anything to work, you have to keep going. And I find that in mine, the man usually don't want to go. He doesn't want to go. Mm-hmm. I don't need help. Mm-hmm. They're not going to really divulge, you know, their information or their feelings to someone else. And women, we're usually probably more receptive. But if you realize that it's just not one time, you have to continue to go, because there are so many things that arises. Remember, there are two different cultures, not even that, two different beings coming together to try to make it work. That's enough in itself. And we're not saying a lot of these things we're not given a lot of these tools in church. It's just like, okay, the Bible, I love the Bible. I love God. Yes, I do. However, I need more practicality and along with spirituality. And I need it to be that, okay, let's be real here. There are days that I don't want to be married.
Yes.
You know,
and it's okay. That's okay.
You just feel that way. Like, I give up. I don't want, because you're on this barometer of comparing yourself to, well, I thought it was going to be this way or it should be this way, and it's none of the above.
I just want to say, a lot of focus on the other person, and sometimes we're the ones that need counseling. Like, I knew I had selfish tendencies, but marriage put them on spotlight.
Yes.
And sometimes we're coming into a situation, you know, it doesn't have to be a marriage, but any relationship, you bring your own stuff. It doesn't have to be hurt, pain, back, but you bring your own orientation.
Yeah.
And I had a cousin who used to always say, I want somebody to love me for me. And I'm one of those people that's always trying to improve, back to the counseling, right? Maybe I should get to know myself.
Yes.
Before I get into a relationship. And so, you know, from the biblical standpoint, which you mentioned earlier, from a biblical standpoint, like, I know there's no good, like, I have no righteousness in and of myself. I have weaknesses. I have shortcomings. I don't think I'm the worst person in the world, but I also know that I'm not perfect, right? So knowing that when I'm going into a relationship, I'm always questioning myself, you know, how much of this is me? How much of it is them? And the whole process of self-discovery happens for a lifetime. So like Todd says, I learned to pick my battles. You know, I came into this really headstrong. We're probably all really strong women. We are a generation of strong women. The culture among women has changed. You know, back in the day, the wife stayed because she couldn't go out and earn her own money. Now you have wives who are the primary breadwinner, breadwinner, and there's a stay-at-home dad. So the whole dynamic with women and our sense of who we are has changed. So we're not so dependent, say, financially, in some cases, or we just really feel that maybe we can do better by ourselves. So back to the whole counseling, I think it should happen before you get engaged.
Yes.
Because the book talks about the fact that, like, it's the first 2 years of marriage, you're in this state of euphoria and idealism, and you're not really thinking logically or experiencing the real. You're like in a hypnotic state. So if you're going into marriage and you're in this state of euphoria and idealism, that's really too late for counseling.
Yes.
Yes.
Husband said he won't counsel people who already have a wedding date, I think is what he said. If you've already set the date, he's not going to counsel you.
Exactly.
Because this is just a formality. You're just checking a box
That's
so that
it.
you get to
Right.
the marriage.
Yep.
This should happen before I start developing feelings for you. Like
Yes.
before I think I like you, I need to know,
What's
that
going on with
you have
you?
a bad temper, or
Yes.
you've got a wandering,
Yes.
or you don't pay your bills, or whatever the case.
Yes. Yes.
Before I connect to you, emotional level, that's when I should know all that stuff.
It's true.
Yes.
It's true.
Agreed.
But as Christians, and this goes back to being a Christian that was asked, growing up, coming from a Christian home, do you even seek counseling? Because I've even heard that, okay, you don't go to counseling, you just turn to God and pray about it.
Mhm.
But I'm like, I think it's wise to seek counsel. There are clinicians out there, some people, and I think all of us, like Miss Cindy was saying, that we all need to go for self-introspection.
Yes.
At some point, we need to go, but just saying pray about it is not just enough.
Right.
Spiritual,
That's true.
the gift of helps and of counsel to the body of Christ. That's a spiritual gift,
Mhm.
contrary to the word of God to seek counsel.
Yeah.
There's wisdom in the multitude of counselors, right? That's
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I had counseling prior to getting married, and yeah, no, it didn't help. Now, the book mentions the in-love experience. I'll quote, most of us enter marriage by way of the in-love experience. At its peak, the in-love experience is euphoric. The person who is in love has the illusion that his beloved is perfect. I know some of you can relate to that statement. The average lifespan of that in-love experience is 2 years. So, did any of you have that in-love experience, and would you share how long it took before reality slapped you in the face?
I had the in love experience. I was drunken in it for about almost 3 years, and it's something you can't really explain unless you've been in it. You literally like float, like you can't stop. You text all day, you're on the phone all day, you don't want to go to work, you're sneaking time, you're running to the bathroom, you whispering, every opportunity you have to sit, please come home. If we have to go to work, I would start crying, can't you come home early? Mine was really, really bad. It's like I couldn't breathe when he wasn't around, because I don't know, it felt great just to have somebody love on you that way. And then, you realize that it's like, it starts to little by little, and it's like it's happening, because you're always told it's like the honeymoon phase that won't last forever. But I was like, oh, it's 2 years, I'm still going strong. This is wow. And man, but when you sober up, man, it hits you like a sack of potatoes, like bam in your head. You just wake up one day and like, what am I doing? And why did I even do that? Why did I even like him? I don't even like the way. Ew. But like the whole time I spent just trying, it didn't matter anything. I knew he did it this way. I knew he liked that. Everything was about, it wasn't even about me. That's the way it made me feel, pleasing him in my drunken state.
Yes.
Yeah, mine lasted for almost 3 years. Yeah, that's about.
So you call your in-love experience your drunken state?
My drunken state, yes. Mommy couldn't do any wrong. That man, I'm telling you, boo-hooing. You gotta go to work. Yeah.
I think there is a difference though with the love stages. If you're going into a marriage with kids, I don't, so I don't know, because I've heard there are different phases and stages. So there are people who've been married like 3 years before they had kids. I came in with a child, so it's like, oh, And I'm like, oh, that's so nice. Oh, okay. So it's like automatic. It's like a
Yes.
burnout. It's like an automatic burnout. It's like,
Yes.
it's like,
Yes.
okay.
Overload.
Yes. Like, whoa. Okay. So I used to envy those couples who had, who got married
Time.
and said who had no kids.
Yes.
So,
No, I did that. I did that with kids.
okay.
That was me. You gotta go to work. Yeah.
Listen, I was so overwhelmed with my child.
Right.
I didn't know what was going on. I was married. 1 minute I got a kid. Next minute I'm
Right.
married. Next minute I'm going.
Yes.
Who is this dude? Who is this kid? Who is? I mean, I'm just a whirlwind of all brand new stuff. And I was just like, oh my goodness, what? I don't think I even had time to be in that woo stage. Maybe before I got married, but once I was married, duty kicks in. And then I married a Jamaican man who is old school. My husband is so old school, it's ridiculous. For his age, he is just, oh geez. So he is the husband that needs the clothes ironed and the oh geez, if the food is not in the microwave, he'll eat bread. I mean, that's what I got into. So I immediately, and then I lived with my in-laws. So my mother-in-law, who will still now, if my husband carries his clothes there, she will wash and iron them. That's, and I live with her. So now, if you don't do that, are you a good wife? If you don't manage everything, are you a good wife? So I had that to deal with. And I come from a mother who is, sir, you iron your own clothes. You have two hands, use them. That's, the mother that I have. And so now I'm like, okay, which one am I? What do I do? So again, confusion, again, learning as I go, just thrown into a washing machine, just
So Tasha, tell me,
yes, Auntie.
has your love language changed?
Definitely. I am my love language is acts of service. And I say that loud. Acts of service.
I don't think he can hear you.
And I can take it from my kids. I can take it from my husband. If you will go in the kitchen and wash a dish for me, oh, I'm in love. If you can cook me something to eat, oh, thank you. Listen, my kids, they told me, Mom, sit down. You don't have to do anything. We'll take care of everything. I was bawling like that was the greatest gift ever. Really? I don't have to do nothing. Mom, don't wash clothes. Mom, don't wash dishes. Mom, we won't call you. Mom, we'll find everything ourselves. We'll take care of everything. I was like, this is the best gift ever. Acts of service. Yes. In the beginning, I needed you to, well, no, not really buy things, but I'm spoiled. I'm the youngest one. My dad did everything. I didn't drive until I was 19. Okay? Because my dad took me everywhere. If I had to go to a game, my dad took me. If I had to go to work, I started working at 17. My dad drove me and picked me up. So I didn't have a need for a driver's license until he said, okay, this is ridiculous. You need to drive. You need to take care of yourself. So this is what I'm coming from. And what was asked of my husband is that he maintain the way I left my parents' house, because I left my parents' house and got married. And that was a stipulation. My father says, you must maintain her the way she left here. So, I mean, in the beginning, it was things, but now you realize things are not important. If you spend time with me, if you care enough about me to know that this is stressful, being a career mom, a mother of 3, a wife, all those hats. And if you can come in and just say, hey, you know what? The dishes are in the sink, honey. Go sit down. I'll wash them. Woohoo! What a blessing. So yes, to answer your question, Auntie, it has changed. Yes.
Yeah, I think with seasons of life, it may change. I think I saw that in the book, as you go through different stages of life, your needs may change. when I was single, I thought my love language was quality time because I wasn't a loner. I have friends, but I lived alone. I was that person that took vacations by myself, went out to dinner by myself, anything I wanted to do. The fact that I was by myself was not an inhibitor. I'm very comfortable being by myself. So once I started spending time with my husband and enjoying it, I thought, oh, this is great. And I look forward to it. But fast forward now, working, trying to run a house, other responsibilities, acts of service seems to have usurped quality time in my mind.
Yes. Yes.
It's really interesting, you know, when you go through the 5 love languages, trying to organize, you know, which is more important, but it really does depend on which stage of your life you're in, as to what takes priority. So I'm going to ask a kind of serious question because I know somebody that's like this. So I just wondered, what do you do when a person's primary love language is physical touch, but that touch must coexist with pain? I'm the type of person, I don't do pain. No way, form, or fashion. When I was in labor, I thought I was going to die. You know, I don't do the pain, but I'm beginning to understand there's people who, unless you cause them some form of physical pain, they don't feel that you love them. What do we do when you're a person who your love language is physical touch and your spouse or significant other, however there's a politically correct way to say it, does not like to cause pain? Where does that leave you?
I don't think,
Go ahead.
I don't know if you're talking about in a sexual context.
Mm-hmm.
You are
Sexual, or there's, you know, some people, you just have to slap them around for them to know that their thing is that if you haven't hurt me, then what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? Do you love me? You know.
Yeah, my had a girlfriend like that once, and that's what he would say. Like, if I don't beat her, she doesn't think I love her. I'm like, oh no, that's not right. So, you know, so we had the conversation on Saturday night, like, how much responsibility do I have for your happiness? And if what it's going to take to make you happy abuses my conscience or causes me to cross some sort of boundary that I have for myself, then we're going to have a problem. I'm not saying that you can't say negotiate and compromise within reason, but if there are things that you find inappropriate, I don't think you should feel obligated to do them for your mate's pleasure or enjoyment, sense of love.
I think that's kind of a hard task to. I wouldn't know how to handle that, but because, you know, for me, I don't feel that that's normal. That's definitely not normal, and then it's not healthy. It's not healthy, but for someone else who maybe have gone through traumatic experiences and have gone through those things, it's healthy for them. And once again, I go back to church. You know, if there was some type of platform where that can be, you know, if it was said and there was some type of help for these abusers or abusees, for those people who feel that they need to be in love to get some type of pain and some type of self-fulfillment, you know, we will be able to help them, or someone will be able to guide them into the right direction. Hopefully a clinician, you know, because everyone may not know how to deal with that. I wouldn't know how to deal with that. Besides, go get help. I wouldn't even, I do agree that is definitely mental illness, you know, and that's something that we scurry over as a culture, and even as a church culture. It's like, you don't tell your business. And we realize that mental illness right now is so on the rise, is rampant. Maybe we should have said something, you know, and because it wouldn't be this overwhelming now, but we haven't said anything. It's just like, oh, we just thought they were literally crazy. No, it's so much more than them being crazy. And then now we're seeing remnants and effects of what was going on. We're like, oh, that was the problem, or that's the issue. A lot of people could have gotten help, but we don't talk about those things as well. And then now you got people getting married, and then the cycle goes on and it remains.
This goes back to what I said, counsel before, because you have to get to know people before. Things like that, they're not swept under the rug for long. You can only be fake for so long.
Suppression.
So now you go through these counseling, and people with those things, they tend to throw little darts. So you'll get a hint of what they like and what they don't like, because they'll begin to tell you. So if we go into these counseling things, or if we date and we have conversation, you'll know that. And then you could just run, like, who was it? David, Paul, just run.
But some people ignore it. That too. Some people will
that too. But then that's with the issue of the other person too, because there's a lot of us women in the church, especially, who feel like they have to get married, and they have a time limit in which to do it. So then they settle. So I think, like I said, a lot of times we have to know ourselves, which needs to have conversation. You know yourself, you love yourself, and you understand that, you know what, I know myself, I'm comfortable, this is what I have to offer. And we all need to have an understanding of what marriage is truly before we agree to be in one, which I think a lot of us do not know what is under that umbrella. And we need to know before how can you agree and make an educated decision if you don't know what it is? And a lot of,
if they were married 60, 50, 80 years, a lot of people still don't know. They're on a principle versus the reality of it. They really don't know.
Times are different. People are different. My view of marriages may not be what my husband is expecting. So now we're on two different levels, because he's expecting this and I'm expecting this. And what he's expecting, I ain't giving. You know what I'm saying? So now we have a problem. So I think we need to all understand what marriage is. And honestly, I'm going to be honest here. When I got married, and after my first 2 years of trying to get through the rocky period, I actually did go to the Bible and get a different definition of what a wife is supposed to be biblically, because it's in there, and there is guidelines to tell you. And since I believe that I want to live my life within the biblical guidelines, because I believe that's eternal, and I believe only what you do for Christ will last, I'm going to be honest. So I said, okay, Lord, I want to do what you want me to do. I want to do what I'm supposed to do, how you feel, because you know me. He knew me before I was born. He knew he knows what's good for me. He knows my beginning from the end. So I had to biblically go back and say, okay, what does it mean to be a wife? I didn't have that definition. I saw what my mom was. I saw what my aunt was, and everybody was different. It wasn't universal, So I was like, okay, Lord, well, what's for me? What does that mean for me? So I think we need to have an understanding of what it means for you to be married on a personal level, what it means to generally be married, because there are general things that happen in a marriage, and then there are specific things that each individual needs. And I think we need to have that whole understanding before we agree and sign that contract.
That's where counseling comes in. And one of the things I find is that the church counsels. Your pastors will counsel. If you're lucky to have a family counselor in the church, you're lucky to have them. But how close to reality is that counseling? Because Tasha, you went on your own to find out what you needed to do to make things better. A lot of us don't have that fortitude or that understanding or that determination. I think a lot of us will just say, you know what, hey, I'm not dealing with this, I'm out, and I don't think the church prepares us well enough for all of this that goes on in marriage. And somebody in the chat asked, how long do we think counseling should last? Some of us need counseling until they're married.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it all depends on what we're saying. Counseling, like it's a general term, and it is. You said like at churches, they go to the pastor, and then if it's a family counselor, there are different counselors for different reasons and for different issues. I really believe in wholeheartedly licensed clinicians, and I'm not disregarding a church, but I think sometimes apart from it, sometimes we need to go there and get the things that we need. And we're like, go to the church. And I feel sorry for a lot of pastors because of all of the swarming of people that keep coming to them and trying to be their savior, want him to be their savior. No, we need to go and speak to someone who can really help us. They're there for a reason. And it's not that we don't believe in God because we're going to a licensed clinician. No, that's because we believe, because we want to get better. And counseling really doesn't work in marriage unless two people choose to go, and try to seek help
and
together.
Participate and be honest.
Yes.
Be honest.
Be real.
Because if you're not going to be honest, it's not going to work.
It's done deal.
And that's the thing for us as Christians. I think it's like you're frowned upon if you don't depend solely on your belief in God. There's something wrong with her because she can't make her Christianity work for her. And I think, we should be able to feel free to go outside of the four walls of our church to get the help we need, because not everybody in the church can deal with your particular problem, which is going to be different from my particular problem, which some pastors have probably not even come up against in their lifetime. So how are they good? And a lot of our pastors, we're getting more females, but a lot of our pastors are male. And I'm sorry, I don't always think a male can empathize with me as a woman.
A female.
Exactly. So, and this is not to put them down, because I know there are trained people out there that can deal with either. But unless you are a trained professional that you can flip the switch on a dime, you're not capable enough, trained enough, educated in the field enough to talk us women through some of the problems we have when we're dealing with the reality of a marriage and children and a husband. So yeah, I am a great believer in people getting the help where they need it. Let me ask you this, because we're closing down. Show of hands, have any of you shared the book with your husbands? Okay, ladies.
Did he read it? Did he read it? I was asking, did he read it on his own or read it with you?
With you. And this is my personal thing. I've been trying to get my husband to do it. We also haven't gotten there yet, but I really think that this book, which is helpful, should be read together. And so that you can have an understanding, there's questionnaires in the back that, a lot of us, until we've talked about it, don't even understand that we have love languages. And, and to know what your love language is and what your when your emotional love tank is empty, when you've given all you've got to give and there's nothing left. So all you can do is just as the song says, stand,
Man.
because you are so empty,
Mhm.
you're dry. And like with any vehicle, if you don't have the gas in the tank to make it move, then yeah, all you can do is just sit there, you know? So I personally believe that, and I'm still trying, a husband and wife should read this book together, because that way he understands you, you understand him. And if you're really working on your marriage, this is where it has to be, because until the two of you understand the love language, you're still going to be facing the same problems every day. Because if you are, for instance, an act of service, Tosh,
Mhm.
and your husband is buying you gifts, he can give you the world.
Whatever.
And
Exactly.
your love tank,
It
your
still won't
emotional
matter.
love tank won't matter. He won't understand that after you've come home from a hard day of work and dealt with the kids' homework and cooked dinner and fed them and turned around and cleaned the kitchen, that for him to bring a bunch of roses and say, babe, can I get some tonight? You say no.
I don't think so.
You know, yeah. If you're all not understanding each other's
Right.
love language,
Mhm.
it's never going to work.
And there was
So, mhm.
there was an interesting premise in the book. You know, when you have a reluctant spouse, right? So a lot of men are afraid of counseling. You know, there was the scenario where the doctor asked the lady for 6 months, right,
Mhm.
to speak her husband's love language.
Yes.
And without him knowing it, his love tank was so full that he became open to providing what she needed to be
Mhm.
full. So I'm experimenting with that. My husband read the book together. He'd read it previously. We did take the quiz.
Mhm.
But you know, knowledge is power, right? So I said, okay, let me try to put some of these things in practice. If I know what his love language is, let me try, because it's not my native tongue.
There you go.
Let me try out esteem my brother better than myself and see if I can pour into him, because hey, our love tanks are empty sometimes. Their love tanks might be empty sometimes.
Mhm.
So let me see if by nurturing him in response, he nurtures me more in my language.
Right.
I have a friend who says, I'm going to kill him with kindness. You know, so yeah, I think if you really want, you know, if you're struggling in your marriage and you really want your marriage to work, this is a great way to start. You know, finding out what his love language is and finding out what yours is, and then the two of you get together and try
Meet in the middle.
to make it in the middle.
Mhm.
So
I
you
think a
don't have
lot of times with marriages in general, I think friends or not, I think sometimes I find that we're comparing our marriages with one another, you know, and not realizing that what works for me in my marriage may not work for you. You know, and what worked for you may not work for me. We really have to understand each other, and what works in our marriage is not going to be the same for everyone. And that's something that we need to start here and stop looking abroad and everywhere else from the media, from whatever it is, and realize and focus on who God gave you and who
Right.
told you to be. And so it starts from here. And we have these tools, we have these books. I mean, we can buy all of these books, we can read whatever, but if we're not implementing these things and knowing each other without trying to gauge him with another man and how he should be, like, because
Mhm.
my friend's husband's doing that for her or what have you, we need to really take a seat back, if we haven't already, and say, okay, this is what we need to do for our home and for our marriage to make it work.
Work with what you got.
Yeah.
Man. Oh, this was absolutely thrilling and stimulating. Um, Let me just try and bring it all together and wrap it up. I quote from the book, "Love is not the answer to everything, but it creates a climate of security in which we can seek answers to those things that bother us. In the security of love, a couple can discuss differences without condemnation. Conflicts can be resolved." And I end that quote. Is it realistic or fair for someone else to be responsible for your happiness? And I think one of you said it. You need to fix yourself before you can fix your marriage.
Mm.
The Bible contains much advice about love, about happiness. It says in Colossians 3:14, "And above all this, put on love, which binds everything together in perfect harmony." I say amen. But in addition, when things fail and the relationship is going awry, seek professional help. The reality of love is not easy. It's not always easy, nor is it the same for everyone, like Tess said. So I just want to thank each and every one of you for participating in this program. And I'm hoping that somewhere someone finds some kind of help in their relationships. Don't be ashamed of reaching out and asking for help. If
Amen.
you value your marriage, let the Bible be your guide.
Mhm.
But also, if you need to go and find someone to walk you through it, do that for the health of you, your husband, and your marriage. So thank you again, everyone, and join us next month on Thursday, March 25th, as we go in search of again. Good night. Have a blessed night and a happy Sabbath when it comes.